Reba McEntire throws a surprise party for her granddaughter and moves everyone with her reaction. The fluorescent lights in St. Mary's Hospital cast harsh shadows across Kelly Harrison's tired face as she watched her 7-year-old daughter Emma struggle to catch her breath. The beeping of monitors filled the sterile room, a constant reminder of the fragile heart beating inside her little girl's chest. Kelly's hands trembled as she adjusted Emma's blanket for the third time in 10 minutes, her nursing training unable to calm the mother's anxiety that gnawed at her stomach like acid. "Mommy, can you play the Reba song again?" Emma's voice was barely above a whisper, but her eyes still held that spark of determination that had carried her through countless hospital visits since she was 3 years old. Kelly reached for the worn CD player on the bedside table, the same one they'd bought at a garage sale 2 years ago, when money was even tighter than it was now. The familiar opening notes of "Consider Me Gone" filled the small room, and immediately Emma's breathing seemed to ease. Kelly closed her eyes and let the music wash over her exhaustion. 3 jobs. That's what it took to keep their heads above water since David walked out 18 months ago, claiming he couldn't handle having a sick child. 3 jobs meant leaving Emma with neighbors, missing school plays, and surviving on 4 hours of sleep most nights. But watching Emma's face light up whenever Reba's voice filled their tiny apartment made every sacrifice worth it. The attending physician, Dr. Martinez, appeared in the doorway with Emma's chart clutched in his weathered hands. Kelly had worked with him long enough at the hospital to read the concern in his furrowed brow. "Kelly, we need to talk," he said quietly, gesturing toward the hallway. Emma was too absorbed in singing along with Reba to notice her mother's sharp intake of breath. If you're enjoying Emma's incredible story and want to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below and know where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything as we share these heartwarming stories that remind us of the power of hope and human kindness. "Her condition is progressing faster than we anticipated," Dr. Martinez explained, once they were out of Emma's earshot. "The medication isn't working as effectively as we hoped. We're looking at more aggressive treatment options, but Kelly..." He paused, his professional demeanor softening. "The costs are going to be significant. Have you considered reaching out to any charitable organizations?" Kelly's throat tightened. She'd already applied to every foundation and charity she could find, most requiring months of paperwork and offering no guarantees. Meanwhile, Emma's medical bills were piling up like autumn leaves, each one representing another sleepless night of trying to figure out how to make ends meet. "I'm doing everything I can," she whispered, her voice cracking despite her efforts to stay strong. Back in the room, Emma had dozed off with the CD player still running. Reba's voice sang softly about resilience and moving forward, words that seemed to speak directly to Kelly's breaking heart. She sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair and watched her daughter's chest rise and fall with each labored breath. Emma's face, even in sleep, held traces of the vibrant personality that made her special. Despite her illness, she had an infectious laugh that could brighten the darkest days and a singing voice that captured the attention of everyone who heard it. Emma wasn't just mimicking Reba McEntire's songs, she felt them deeply, understanding emotions that seemed far beyond her 7 years. When she sang Fancy, her voice carried the same determination that Reba brought to the story of a girl rising above her circumstances. When she performed "The Greatest Man I Never Knew," tears would well up in her eyes as she grasped the song's message about love and loss. It was as if the music gave Emma a language to express feelings that her young heart couldn't otherwise articulate. "She's going to be okay, isn't she, Mommy?" Emma's sleepy voice startled Kelly from her thoughts. Her daughter's eyes were open now, staring up at the ceiling with that 1,000-yard look that children shouldn't have to develop. "Reba says in her songs that everything works out if you just keep believing." Kelly forced a smile and brushed Emma's auburn hair away from her forehead. "Of course, sweetheart, you're the strongest little girl I know." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but Emma's answering smile made it worthwhile. How could she explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes believing wasn't enough, that sometimes the medical bills exceeded what 3 jobs could cover, that sometimes loving someone with all your heart still couldn't fix their broken body? That night, after Emma finally fell into a deeper sleep, Kelly sat in the hospital cafeteria with her phone and a cup of coffee that had long since grown cold. She scrolled through social media, watching other families share their happy moments while she lived in this constant state of medical limbo. An idea began forming in her mind, desperate and probably foolish, but an idea nonetheless. What if she could somehow get Emma's story out there? What if people could see what an amazing little girl she was, how her love for Reba McEntire gave her strength to face each day? Kelly had seen stories of celebrities reaching out to sick children before, though they always seemed to happen to other families, not to overworked single mothers in small Tennessee towns. She started typing before she could talk herself out of it. The post was simple, accompanied by a photo of Emma in her hospital bed, wearing a Reba McEntire t-shirt that was 3 sizes too big and holding her beat-up CD player like a treasure. My daughter Emma is 7 years old and has been fighting a rare heart condition since she was 3. Her biggest dream is to meet her idol, Reba McEntire, whose music gives her strength during her treatments. Emma sings along to every song and knows the words to albums most kids her age have never heard of. I know it's a long shot, but if anyone knows someone who knows someone, a little girl's dream might just be the medicine her heart needs most. Kelly hesitated for a long moment before hitting the share button. The post disappeared into the vast digital ocean of the internet, one drop among millions of others. She didn't expect anything to come of it, but at least she'd tried. At least she'd done something other than sit helplessly while watching her daughter fight a battle that seemed increasingly impossible to win. The next morning brought another round of tests and consultations. Emma endured the procedures with the patience of someone far older, clutching her Reba CD to her chest like a talisman. "Mommy, do you think Reba knows about kids like me?" she asked during a quiet moment between appointments. "Do you think she knows her music makes people feel better?" Kelly's heart clenched at the innocence in her daughter's voice. "I'm sure she does, baby. I'm sure she knows exactly how special her fans are." It was another small lie, but one that brought peace to Emma's worried features. In truth, Kelly had no idea if someone as famous as Reba McEntire ever thought about the ordinary people who bought her albums and attended her concerts. The entertainment world seemed so far removed from hospital rooms and medical bills, but as Kelly watched Emma drift off to sleep that afternoon, singing softly along to "Consider Me Gone" one more time, she allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone out there would see her post and understand that sometimes miracles came in the form of human kindness. Maybe someone would remember that behind every fan letter and concert ticket was a real person with real struggles and real dreams. The social media post had been live for 24 hours, and Kelly tried not to check it obsessively. She had more immediate concerns to worry about, like the conversation she'd had with the billing department about Emma's mounting expenses. The hospital was patient, but patience had limits, and those limits were approaching faster than Kelly could find solutions. Emma's condition seemed to stabilize slightly over the next 2 days, enough for the doctors to discuss sending her home with new medications and strict activity restrictions. Kelly should have felt relieved, but instead she felt the weight of responsibility settling heavier on her shoulders. Home meant returning to their small apartment, to the stack of bills on the kitchen table, to the reality of trying to balance 3 jobs while caring for a chronically ill child. "Look, Mommy," Emma said, pointing at her phone screen, where a video was playing. "That lady sounds just like Reba, but it's not her. She's really good, though." Kelly glanced over to see Emma watching a tribute artist performing at some local venue, her expert ear immediately detecting the difference between the real thing and an imitation. After listening to Reba McEntire's entire catalogue hundreds of times, Emma had become something of an expert on the nuances of her idol's voice. "You have a better ear for music than most adults," Kelly told her daughter, and it was true. Emma's ability to distinguish between different singers and pick up on subtle musical elements was remarkable for someone her age. She didn't just love Reba's music, she understood it on a level that spoke to her soul. When Emma sang along, it wasn't just mimicry. It was genuine musical expression from a child who had found her voice through someone else's art. As they prepared to leave the hospital the following day, Kelly's phone buzzed with a notification that made her heart skip a beat. Her post about Emma had been shared nearly 50 times by people in their community, and comments were pouring in from friends, neighbors, and even strangers offering support and encouragement. Most were simple messages of hope and prayer, but a few mentioned that they'd shared the post even further, hoping it might reach someone with connections to the country music world. Kelly's hands shook as she read through the responses, overwhelmed by the kindness of people she'd never met. Emma, still weak but excited to go home, peered over her mother's shoulder at the screen. "Are all those people talking about me?" she asked with wide eyes. "They're all rooting for you, sweetheart," Kelly replied, her voice thick with emotion. "They want your dream to come true just as much as we do." For the first time in months, Kelly felt something that had been absent from her life for far too long. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope that she'd been surviving on, but genuine optimism that maybe, possibly, something good could come from their struggles. The drive home from the hospital was quiet, with Emma dozing in the back seat and Kelly's mind racing with possibilities she didn't dare fully embrace. The rational part of her brain knew that viral posts rarely led to real-world miracles, but the mother's heart beating in her chest whispered that sometimes the impossible happened to people who needed it most. As they pulled into the parking lot of their modest apartment complex, Kelly caught sight of their neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, hanging laundry on her balcony. The elderly woman waved enthusiastically and called out, "I saw your post about Emma online. My granddaughter shared it with all her friends in Nashville. You never know who might see it." Nashville, the heart of country music, where dreams were made and legends lived. Kelly helped Emma out of the car, watching her daughter's face light up at the mention of the city that represented everything she loved about music. "Maybe one day we'll visit Nashville," Kelly said softly, though she knew their budget couldn't accommodate such luxuries. "Maybe," Emma agreed, but her tone suggested she believed it might actually happen. That unwavering faith, even in the face of so much uncertainty, was what made Emma extraordinary. She hadn't let her illness dim her dreams, or her belief that good things were still possible. Inside their small apartment, Kelly set Emma up on the couch with her CD player and a stack of pillows, making sure she was comfortable before tackling the pile of mail that had accumulated during their hospital stay. Bills, mostly, but also a few cards from Emma's classmates and teachers, reminding Kelly that their community was larger and more supportive than she sometimes realized. As Emma's voice filled the apartment, singing along to Fancy with perfect pitch and remarkable emotional depth, Kelly allowed herself to believe, just for a moment, that her daughter's dream might not be as impossible as it seemed. Somewhere out there in the vast world of social media and human connections, maybe someone was listening who had the power to make a little girl's biggest wish come true. 3 days passed in their familiar routine of medications, rest periods, and gentle activities that wouldn't strain Emma's fragile heart. Kelly had returned to work at the hospital, grateful that her supervisor allowed her to adjust her schedule to care for Emma at home. The social media post continued to gain traction slowly, reaching friends of friends and spreading through their small community like ripples in a pond. Emma spent her mornings on the couch, surrounded by coloring books and her collection of Reba McEntire CDs. She had memorized every song on every album, often providing commentary that surprised Kelly with its sophistication. "This song is about someone who's sad, but trying to be strong," Emma would say about "She thinks his name was John," or "This one makes me think about Daddy, even though I don't want to." Kelly's heart ached every time Emma mentioned David. Despite his abandonment, Emma still harbored hope that her father might return, especially if she got better. Kelly had stopped trying to explain that some people simply couldn't handle difficult situations. Instead, she focused on being both mother and father, provider and protector, while battling her own fears about Emma's future. The apartment's silence was broken one afternoon by Kelly's phone ringing with an unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer, assuming it was another bill collector, but something made her pick up on the fourth ring. "Hello, is this Kelly Harrison?" The voice was professional but warm, with a slight southern accent that immediately put Kelly on alert. "Yes, this is Kelly," she replied cautiously, watching Emma color a picture of a cowboy hat while humming "Does He Love You" under her breath. The caller introduced herself as Sarah Mitchell from a local news station, explaining that someone had forwarded Emma's story to their human interest department. Kelly's hands began to tremble as Sarah asked if they'd be interested in doing a brief television segment about Emma's love for Reba McEntire. "Television?" Kelly repeated, causing Emma to look up from her coloring book with curious eyes. "I don't know if Emma is strong enough for something like that right now." The truth was that Kelly feared exposing their private struggles to public scrutiny, worried that people might judge her parenting or question her decisions. Sarah's voice softened with understanding. "We wouldn't need much, just a few minutes of Emma singing her favorite song and talking about what Reba's music means to her." Sometimes these stories reach people who can help in unexpected ways. The implication hung in the air between them, like a bridge Kelly wasn't sure she was brave enough to cross. After ending the call, Kelly sat heavily in the worn armchair across from Emma's makeshift bed on the sofa. "Mommy, who was that?" Emma asked, setting down her crayons with the careful precision that had become second nature, since her illness taught her to conserve energy for important things. "Someone wants to put you on television," Kelly said slowly, watching Emma's face transform with excitement despite her physical weakness. "They want you to sing a Reba song and talk about how much her music helps you feel better." Emma's eyes lit up brighter than they had in weeks, and Kelly knew the decision was already made. The news crew arrived 2 days later, their equipment filling the small living room and making everything seem smaller and more cramped. Emma had insisted on wearing her best dress, a pale yellow sundress that had been a gift from Kelly's mother before she passed away last year. She sat propped up with pillows, her Reba CD collection displayed proudly on the coffee table like precious artifacts. The reporter, Sarah Mitchell, was gentler than Kelly had expected, speaking to Emma as if she were talking to any other 7-year-old rather than treating her like a tragic figure. "So, Emma, tell me about Reba McEntire. What makes her music so special to you?" Sarah asked, her camera operator capturing every expression that crossed Emma's animated face. "Her voice makes me feel like I can be strong even when I'm scared," Emma replied, with the honesty that children possess before the world teaches them to hide their emotions. "When I'm in the hospital and the machines are loud and scary, I listen to her sing, and I remember that brave people can handle hard things." Kelly bit her lip to keep from crying, amazed by her daughter's wisdom. Emma sang "Consider Me Gone" for the cameras, her pure voice filling the small apartment with unexpected power. Despite her physical limitations, her vocal abilities seemed untouched by illness, carrying emotion that transcended her years. The news crew exchanged glances that Kelly recognized as professional surprise. This wasn't just a sick child singing her favorite song, this was genuine talent. After the crew left, Emma was exhausted but exhilarated. "Do you think Reba might see it on television?" she asked as Kelly helped her into her pajamas. "Do you think she watches the news?" Kelly tucked her daughter into bed, promising that sometimes amazing things happened when people shared their stories with the world. The segment aired 3 days later during the evening news, sandwiched between a story about local election results and a feature on a new park opening downtown. Kelly and Emma watched together, Emma giggling with delight at seeing herself on television. "I look smaller than I thought I would," she commented, but her smile was radiant. Kelly's phone began ringing within minutes of the broadcast ending. Friends and co-workers called to say they'd seen the story. Neighbors knocked on the door with flowers and homemade cookies, and Emma's former classmates sent messages through their parents. The attention was overwhelming but mostly positive, with people expressing admiration for Emma's courage and Kelly's dedication as a single mother. But it was the unexpected call the next morning that changed everything. Kelly was preparing Emma's medications when her phone rang with another unfamiliar number, this time with a Nashville area code that made her heart skip. "Mrs. Harrison, my name is Jennifer Walsh, and I work with Starstruck Entertainment in Nashville," the voice said, immediately capturing Kelly's complete attention. "I saw your daughter's story on the news last night," Jennifer continued, "and I wanted to reach out because someone very special saw it too. Would it be possible for us to arrange a phone call later today?" Kelly's hands were shaking so violently that she nearly dropped her phone. Starstruck Entertainment was Reba McEntire's management company. Emma was napping when the call came through that afternoon. Kelly answered on the first ring, her heart pounding so hard she worried it might wake her daughter. "Mrs. Harrison, I have someone here who'd like to speak with you," Jennifer said, and then the voice that Kelly had heard thousands of times through Emma's CD player was suddenly speaking directly to her. "Kelly, this is Reba McEntire," the unmistakable voice said, warm and genuine despite the surreal nature of the moment. "I saw Emma's story, and I have to tell you that little girl has touched my heart in ways I can't even begin to describe." Kelly's legs gave out and she sank onto the kitchen floor, tears streaming down her face as she tried to process that her daughter's idol was actually talking to her. "She has such a beautiful voice," Reba continued, "and the way she understands my music, the emotion she puts into it, it's something special. I've been in this business for decades, and I can tell when someone has that genuine connection to music that can't be taught or faked." Kelly managed to whisper her thanks, still unable to believe this conversation was actually happening. "I'd like to do something for Emma," Reba said, her voice taking on a tone of gentle conspiracy. "But I want it to be a surprise, so I need your help. Would it be possible for you to bring Emma somewhere next week, without telling her why?" Kelly's mind reeled as Reba's team began explaining their plan, each detail more incredible than the last. They wanted to throw Emma a surprise party, complete with decorations, cake, and several other country music artists who had heard her story and wanted to participate. But the most amazing part was that Reba wanted Emma to perform with her, to sing together properly with full musical accompaniment. "She deserves to know how special she is," Reba explained. "And sometimes we all need reminding that dreams can come true." After the call ended, Kelly sat on her kitchen floor for 20 minutes, staring at her phone and wondering if she'd imagined the entire conversation. But when she looked toward the living room where Emma was still sleeping peacefully, clutching her worn Reba CD, Kelly knew it had been real. Her daughter's impossible dream was about to come true in ways that surpassed even Emma's vivid imagination. The hardest part was keeping the secret. Emma noticed that her mother seemed different, more excited and nervous at the same time, but Kelly deflected her questions by claiming she was just happy that Emma was feeling stronger. Meanwhile, Reba's team called daily with updates and arrangements, coordinating every detail to ensure Emma's surprise would be perfect. Emma's health had stabilized enough for short outings, and Kelly had been taking her on small adventures around town to build up her stamina. They visited the park, went to the library, and even managed a trip to the ice cream shop that left Emma tired but smiling. These excursions became the perfect cover story for what Kelly's planned to tell Emma about their mysterious upcoming trip. "We're going to visit a special place next week," Kelly told Emma one evening as they shared a bowl of popcorn while watching an old movie. "It's a surprise, but I think you're going to love it." Emma's eyes sparkled with curiosity, but she didn't press for details, trusting her mother's judgment about what adventures she could handle. The night before their departure, Kelly barely slept. She packed Emma's best clothes, including the yellow sundress, and a new outfit she'd splurged on with money from her emergency fund. Emma's medications were carefully organized, and Kelly had spoken with Dr. Martinez about the trip, receiving his cautious approval as long as they didn't overexert Emma or stay away too long. Emma woke up energetic and excited, chattering about their mystery destination while Kelly helped her get ready. "Is it somewhere with music?" Emma asked as they loaded into Kelly's aging Honda Civic. "Will there be other kids there?" Kelly smiled mysteriously and promised that Emma would find out soon enough. The drive to Nashville took 2 hours, with Emma singing along to her Reba CDs for most of the journey. She pressed her face to the window as they entered the city, marveling at the tall buildings and busy streets that represented the heart of country music. "This is where Reba lives," Emma said with reverence, as if they were approaching hallowed ground. When they pulled up to the elegant event venue that Reba's team had chosen, Emma's eyes widened at the beautiful building with its columns and manicured gardens. "What is this place, Mommy?" she asked. But before Kelly could answer, Jennifer Walsh appeared at their car door with a warm smile and an air of barely contained excitement. "Emma, we've been waiting for you," Jennifer said, extending her hand to help the little girl out of the car. Emma looked to her mother for reassurance, receiving an encouraging nod that said everything would be wonderful. As they walked toward the building's entrance, Kelly's heart raced with anticipation. For the moment, her daughter's world was about to change forever. The double doors opened, and Emma stepped into a room transformed into a country music wonderland. But what she saw waiting for her inside would exceed every dream she'd ever dared to dream. The room exploded with color and music, themed decorations that transformed the elegant venue into a country music paradise. Balloons in shades of gold and red filled the ceiling, while banners reading, "Welcome Emma, our little country star," stretched across the walls. But what made Emma's knees buckle and her small hand clutch her mother's arm wasn't the decorations. Standing in the center of the room, wearing a beautiful turquoise dress and the warmest smile Emma had ever seen, was Reba McEntire herself. The country music legend who had been Emma's constant companion through countless hospital visits and lonely nights was suddenly real, standing just 20 feet away like something out of the most impossible dream. Emma's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, her usual chatter replaced by complete shock. Tears immediately sprang to her eyes as she looked back and forth between her mother and her idol, trying to process that this moment was actually happening. Kelly knelt beside her daughter, her own eyes filling with tears at the expression of pure joy and disbelief on Emma's face. "Emma, sweetheart," Reba said, walking toward them with the grace of someone who had spent decades performing for audiences, but the gentleness of someone who understood she was approaching a fragile little girl's biggest dream. "I've been waiting to meet you for what feels like forever." Her voice carried the same warmth Emma had heard on countless recordings, but now it was directed personally at her. When Reba knelt down to Emma's eye level, the little girl finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Are you really Reba McEntire?" she asked, as if speaking too loudly might break the spell and send her hero disappearing like a mirage. Reba's laugh was musical and genuine, the sound Emma had memorized from interviews and behind-the-scenes footage. "I'm really me," Reba confirmed, reaching out to gently touch Emma's hand. "And you're really Emma, the little girl with the most beautiful voice I've ever heard from someone your age. I saw you on television singing my song, and you made me cry happy tears." Emma's eyes grew even wider at the thought that she could make her idol emotional. The room was filled with other people, but Emma barely noticed them as Reba guided her toward a special chair decorated with ribbons and flowers. Kelly followed behind, still struggling to believe that her desperate social media post had led to this impossible moment. Other country music artists were present, people Kelly recognized from award shows and music videos, but they all seemed to understand that this was Emma's moment with her hero. "Emma, I brought some friends with me today," Reba said, gesturing toward the other musicians. "They all wanted to meet you because word gets around pretty fast in Nashville when someone special appears on the scene." Emma's gaze followed Reba's gesture, recognizing faces she'd seen on her mother's country music magazines and television specials. Among the assembled artists was Trisha Yearwood, whose warm smile and gentle demeanor immediately put Emma at ease. "Your mama told us how much you love music," Trisha said, sitting in a chair next to Emma's special seat. "We love meeting young people who understand what country music is really about." Emma nodded shyly, still overwhelmed by the surreal nature of being surrounded by her musical heroes, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. Reba clapped her hands together and addressed the room with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to celebrate someone very special. Emma has shown us all what it means to find strength in music, to let songs carry you through the hardest times, and to never give up on your dreams." A small stage had been set up at one end of the room, complete with professional lighting and sound equipment that made Emma's eyes widen with wonder. "Emma," Reba continued, "I heard that you know all the words to my songs, and I was wondering if you might like to sing one with me. Would that be something you'd enjoy?" The question was asked gently with no pressure, but Emma's enthusiastic nod needed no verbal accompaniment. Kelly watched from the side as her daughter, who had been too weak to play outside for months, suddenly found energy she hadn't possessed in weeks. The presence of her idol and the magic of the moment seemed to infuse Emma with a vitality that medical treatments hadn't been able to provide. It was as if Reba's music had always been medicine for Emma's spirit, and now the source of that medicine was offering to share her gift directly. The musicians took their places on the small stage, and Reba helped Emma up the steps with careful attention to her physical limitations. "What song would you like to sing?" Reba asked, though she already knew the answer from their previous conversations with Kelly. Emma's response was immediate and confident, despite her usual shyness. "The Greatest Man I Never Knew," Emma said, her voice stronger than it had been all day. It was a song about love and loss, about recognizing worth too late, and somehow this 7-year-old girl understood its emotional complexity in ways that amazed every adult in the room. Reba nodded approvingly and signaled to her band. As the opening notes filled the air, Emma closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. When she began to sing, her voice blended perfectly with Reba's, creating a harmony that seemed impossible given their age difference and the spontaneous nature of their duet. Emma's pure, clear voice carried emotions that belied her years, while Reba's seasoned vocals provided a foundation of strength and experience. The room fell completely silent except for the music and their joined voices. Kelly found herself crying openly as she watched her daughter share the stage with her idol, seeing Emma's face transformed by joy and confidence she hadn't displayed since before her illness worsened. Every person present seemed to understand they were witnessing something magical, a moment that transcended the typical boundaries between performer and audience. When the song ended, The applause was thunderous, despite the relatively small audience. Emma looked stunned by the response, still clinging to Reba's hand as if afraid this dream might end too quickly. Reba pulled her into a gentle hug, whispering something in her ear that made Emma's face light up with surprise and delight. "Emma has another surprise coming," Reba announced to the room, causing Kelly's heart to skip with curiosity about what else could possibly be planned. "But first, I think we need some cake and celebration because this young lady deserves to be honored properly." A beautiful cake was wheeled out, decorated with musical notes and Emma's name in elegant script. As Emma blew out the candles, she made a wish that everyone could guess but no one could hear. Kelly suspected it involved more moments like this, more opportunities to sing with her hero, and perhaps the impossible dream of sharing music with the world despite her physical limitations. The joy on Emma's face was worth every sleepless night Kelly had endured, every bill she'd struggled to pay, every moment of fear about her daughter's future. The party continued with Emma at the center of attention, but not in a way that overwhelmed her fragile constitution. The country music stars took turns talking with her about music, about favorite songs and artists, treating her like a peer rather than a charity case. Emma's knowledge of country music impressed even these seasoned professionals, who found themselves genuinely enjoying conversations with this remarkable little girl. Trisha Yearwood sat with Emma during a quiet moment, asking about her favorite albums and discovering that Emma had opinions about vocal techniques and song arrangements that demonstrated unusual sophistication. "You have a real understanding of music," Trisha told her. "That's something that can't be taught. It comes from the heart." Emma beamed at the compliment, storing it away as a treasured memory. But Reba had been watching Emma carefully throughout the party, noting when she needed to rest and ensuring she didn't become overstimulated. The country legend's experience as a mentor and her natural maternal instincts allowed her to gauge Emma's energy levels and adjust the festivities accordingly. When she noticed Emma beginning to tire, she smoothly transitioned the party toward its next surprise. "Emma, I have something else I want to share with you," Reba said, sitting beside the little girl as the other guests gathered around them. "You know how much your singing impressed me today, and how much your story has touched my heart." Emma nodded, hanging on every word with the attention she usually reserved for her favorite songs. "I've been thinking about how music has helped you through difficult times, and how your voice deserves to be heard by more people," Reba continued, building suspense in the way only an experienced entertainer could. "So I talked to my team, and we'd like to invite you to be a special guest at my concert next month. Would you like to sing with me on stage in front of thousands of people?" Emma's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. She threw her arms around Reba's neck, tears of joy streaming down her face as she tried to process this incredible invitation. Kelly gasped from across the room, understanding the magnitude of what Reba was offering. This wasn't just a meet and greet or a private moment. This was an opportunity for Emma to live her dream on the biggest possible stage. "Really?" Emma asked when she could finally speak, pulling back to look into Reba's eyes for confirmation. "Really, truly? In front of real people?" Reba nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of the promise she was making to this sick little girl and her devoted mother. "Really, truly," Reba confirmed. "But that's not all." She paused, building anticipation for what Kelly suspected might be an even bigger surprise. "My team and I have been working on something else, something to help make sure you get the best medical care possible so you can keep sharing that beautiful voice with the world." The final surprise was more than Emma or Kelly could have imagined in their wildest dreams, and as Reba began to explain what she had arranged, Kelly realized that their lives were about to change in ways that went far beyond a single magical afternoon. Reba reached into an elegant gift bag beside her chair and withdrew an envelope that seemed to glow with importance in the soft party lighting. Emma's eyes followed every movement, her small hands clasped together in anticipation of whatever revelation was coming next. Kelly felt her breath catch in her throat, wondering what other miracles could possibly be contained in something as simple as a piece of paper. "Emma, your mama has been working so hard to take care of you, juggling 3 jobs and doing everything she can to make sure you get the medical attention you need," Reba began, her voice taking on a tone of deep respect for Kelly's sacrifices. "But nobody should have to choose between paying bills and getting their child the best possible care." Kelly's eyes filled with tears as she realized what direction this conversation was heading. "So my team and I have been working with some very special doctors in Nashville," Reba continued, opening the envelope with ceremonial care. "We've established a fund that will cover all of Emma's medical expenses, not just for now, but for as long as she needs care. Every treatment, every medication, every doctor's visit. You'll never have to worry about choosing between your daughter's health and keeping a roof over your heads." The words hit Kelly like a physical force, causing her to sink into the nearest chair, as the magnitude of Reba's generosity began to register. 3 jobs, sleepless nights, the constant worry about mounting medical bills, all of it suddenly lifted from her shoulders by the kindness of someone who had started as just a voice on her daughter's CD player. Emma, with the innocence of childhood, focused on the part of the announcement that made the most sense to her 7-year-old mind. "Does this mean I can see the best doctors? The ones who might be able to make my heart work better?" Her question was asked with such hope that every adult in the room felt their own hearts constrict with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart," Reba replied, kneeling down to Emma's level once again. "It means you can see the very best doctors, and they're going to take excellent care of you. Dr. Sarah Chen is one of the top pediatric heart specialists in the country, and she's already reviewed your medical records. She wants to meet you next week." The name meant nothing to Emma, but Kelly recognized it from her desperate late-night internet searches for specialists they couldn't afford. Jennifer Walsh stepped forward with additional paperwork, explaining to Kelly that everything had been arranged through Reba's charitable foundation, ensuring that the assistance would continue regardless of Emma's prognosis or the length of treatment required. "We've also arranged for transportation to appointments and accommodations if Emma needs to stay in Nashville for extended treatment periods," Jennifer added, anticipating concerns Kelly hadn't even dared to voice. The room erupted in gentle applause from the assembled guests, but Emma seemed more focused on processing what this meant for her daily life than celebrating the financial implications. "Mommy, if the doctors can help my heart get stronger, does that mean I might be able to go back to school with the other kids?" she asked, her question revealing how much she missed the normal childhood experiences her illness had stolen. Kelly couldn't speak through her tears, but Reba answered for her. "That's exactly what we're hoping for, Emma. We want you to have every opportunity to be a regular little girl who just happens to have an extraordinary voice." The simplicity of that statement captured everything Kelly had been fighting for since Emma's diagnosis. Tricia Yearwood, who had been quietly observing the emotional scene, stepped forward with her own contribution to the moment. "Emma, I have something for you too," she said, producing a beautiful leather-bound journal with musical staffs printed on the pages. "This is for you to write down your own songs. I have a feeling that someday soon we're going to be hearing original music from Emma Harrison, and when that day comes, I want to be able to say I knew you when you were just getting started." The gift represented something Emma had never considered before, the possibility that she could create music instead of just performing other people's songs. Her fingers traced the elegant cover of the journal with reverence, understanding intuitively that this represented a new chapter in her relationship with music. "I don't know how to write songs," Emma admitted, but her tone suggested she was eager to learn rather than intimidated by the prospect. Reba and Tricia exchanged knowing glances, recognizing the spark of creative ambition that separated true artists from casual performers. "Writing songs is just like telling stories, except you do it with music," Reba explained, settling into what was clearly a familiar role as mentor and teacher. "You start with something that makes you feel strongly, happy or sad or excited or scared, and then you find words that capture that feeling. The music comes from understanding how those emotions sound when they turn into melodies." Emma's eyes lit up with comprehension. "Like how your song about missing someone makes me think about Daddy, but it also makes me feel less alone because you understand what missing someone feels like." Her interpretation demonstrated the emotional intelligence that had impressed everyone who heard her sing. "Exactly like that," Reba confirmed, marveling at how quickly Emma grasped concepts that some adult musicians struggled to understand. "Music is about connection, about sharing feelings that are sometimes too big for regular words. You already understand that part better than most people ever will." The party began to wind down as Emma's energy started to flag, but the mood remained elevated by the remarkable events of the day. Other guests approached to say goodbye, each offering words of encouragement and support that Emma accepted with the poise of someone much older. Kelly watched her daughter interact with these country music legends and felt pride mixed with amazement at how naturally Emma fit into this world. As the room gradually emptied, Reba lingered with Emma and Kelly, clearly reluctant to end their time together. "Emma, I want you to know that this isn't goodbye," she said, taking the little girl's hands in hers. "We're going to be friends now, real friends. I want you to call me if you're scared before a doctor's appointment, or if you write a song you want to share, or even if you just want to talk about music." Emma's response was to throw her arms around Reba's neck in a hug that conveyed everything her words couldn't express. Kelly watched the embrace through her tears, understanding that her daughter was saying goodbye to the person who had been a distant idol and hello to someone who would now be a real presence in her life. The drive home was quiet, with Emma dozing in the back seat, emotionally and physically exhausted by the most overwhelming day of her young life. Kelly drove through the Tennessee countryside with her mind spinning, trying to process how radically their situation had changed in the span of a single afternoon. The immediate financial pressure was gone. Access to the best medical care was guaranteed. Emma's dream of performing had not only come true, but expanded beyond what either of them had imagined possible. But perhaps most importantly, Emma had discovered that her heroes were real people who cared about her as an individual, not just as a fan or a charity case. The relationships formed today would provide emotional support that might prove even more valuable than the financial assistance. When they arrived home, Emma was awake enough to walk to the apartment under her own power, but Kelly could see that the excitement had taken its toll on her fragile constitution. As Kelly helped her daughter into her pajamas, Emma chatted sleepily about the day's events, trying to process memories that seemed too wonderful to be real. "Mommy, did Reba really say she wants to be my friend?" Emma asked, as Kelly tucked her into bed with extra pillows to help her breathing. "Not just pretend friend like on television, but real friend like you have with Mrs. Rodriguez next door?" Kelly assured her that yes, Reba's offer of friendship was genuine based on their conversations throughout the day. "And Dr. Chen is really going to help my heart get better," Emma continued, her questions revealing the core hopes that had sustained her through months of illness and uncertainty. Kelly nodded, explaining that they would meet with the specialist soon and learn about new treatment options that hadn't been available to them before. Emma fell asleep with a smile on her face, her new songwriting journal clutched against her chest like a talisman. Kelly sat beside her bed for a long time, watching her daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. The stress lines that had become permanent fixtures on Emma's young face seemed softer, as if hope itself was acting as medicine. Kelly's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number, but the content immediately identified the sender. "Kelly, this is Reba. I wanted to thank you for raising such an incredible daughter and for trusting us with her dreams today. Please don't hesitate to call if you need anything before your appointment with Dr. Chen. Emma has given us all a gift by reminding us why we fell in love with music in the first place." The message was followed by Reba's personal phone number and an invitation to stay in touch beyond the formal arrangements made by her team. Kelly saved the contact information with shaking hands, still unable to fully believe that her daughter's idol had become a genuine friend and advocate. Over the following days, Emma's improved mood had a noticeable impact on her physical condition. She had more energy for short walks, showed increased appetite, and most remarkably, began filling her new journal with song ideas. Her writing was simple but emotionally authentic, capturing feelings about illness, hope, and family in ways that impressed Kelly with their maturity. "I wrote a song about today," Emma announced 3 days after the party, sitting cross-legged on her bed with the journal open in front of her. "It's called When Dreams Come True, and it's about how sometimes the best things happen when you stop expecting them." She sang a few lines in her clear, sweet voice, and Kelly realized that her daughter was indeed becoming a songwriter as well as a performer. The appointment with Dr. Chen was scheduled for the following week, but Emma's anticipation was now mixed with excitement rather than the dread that usually preceded medical consultations. "If my heart gets better, I can practice singing longer," she told Kelly. "Maybe I can write songs for Reba to sing someday." The ambitious nature of her dreams had expanded to match the new possibilities in her life. As Kelly prepared for bed that night, she reflected on how quickly their circumstances had changed and how different Emma's future looked compared to just a week ago. The road ahead would still be challenging, but they would no longer walk it alone. Emma's dream of meeting her idol had been fulfilled beyond their wildest imaginations, But Kelly suspected this was just the beginning of an even more remarkable journey that would test Emma's strength in ways neither of them could yet anticipate. The appointment with Dr. Sarah Chen arrived faster than Kelly had expected, carrying with it hopes that she had barely allowed herself to nurture. Emma woke up on the appointed morning with an energy that had been absent for months, singing softly to herself as Kelly helped her into her best dress. "Today feels special, Mommy," Emma said, her intuition picking up on the significance of this medical consultation that could change everything. Dr. Chen's office was unlike any medical facility Emma had experienced before. The walls were decorated with cheerful artwork instead of sterile medical posters, and soft music played in the background, creating an atmosphere that felt more welcoming than clinical. When Dr. Chen entered the examination room, her warm smile and gentle manner immediately put Emma at ease. "So you're the young lady who's been making waves in Nashville," Dr. Chen said, settling into a chair at Emma's eye level rather than towering over her from a standing position. "I hear you have an extraordinary voice and an extraordinary heart, though perhaps not in the ways we'd prefer." Her approach to discussing Emma's condition was refreshingly direct, yet age-appropriate. The examination was thorough, but conducted with a sensitivity that acknowledged Emma's previous traumatic medical experiences. Dr. Chen explained each procedure before performing it, allowing Emma to ask questions and express concerns. Kelly watched nervously as the doctor listened to Emma's heart, studied her previous test results, and conducted new evaluations with equipment more advanced than anything their local hospital possessed. After 2 hours of tests and consultations, Dr. Chen sat down with both Emma and Kelly to discuss her findings. "Emma, your heart condition is serious, but it's not hopeless," she began, choosing her words carefully to provide realistic optimism without false promises. "There's a new treatment protocol that we've been developing here in Nashville, and I believe you could be an excellent candidate. The treatment would involve a series of procedures over several months, requiring Emma to stay in Nashville for extended periods. It wasn't surgery in the traditional sense, but rather a combination of advanced medications and minimally invasive interventions designed to strengthen her heart function gradually. The success rate has been very encouraging," Dr. Chen explained to Kelly, "but it requires patience and commitment from both patient and family." Emma's response surprised both adults. "Will I be strong enough to sing with Reba at her concert if I do the treatments?" she asked, her priorities clearly focused on the performance opportunity that had become her primary motivation. Dr. Chen smiled at the question, understanding that Emma's emotional investment in the upcoming concert could be a powerful factor in her recovery. "If the treatments work as we hope, you should not only be strong enough to perform, but you might find that singing becomes easier and more enjoyable than it's been in years," Dr. Chen replied. "Music can be wonderful medicine, but it works best when combined with proper medical care." Emma nodded solemnly, accepting the doctor's logic with the wisdom of someone who had learned to balance dreams with reality. The logistics were complex, but manageable, thanks to Reba's generous support. Kelly could take extended leave from her jobs without financial hardship, and they would stay in a comfortable apartment near the medical center during Emma's treatment phases. Most importantly, Reba had arranged her concert schedule to accommodate Emma's medical needs, ensuring that the performance opportunity would remain available regardless of treatment timing. Over the following weeks, as Emma began the new treatment protocol, her relationship with Reba deepened beyond their initial meeting. Reba called regularly, not just to check on Emma's medical progress, but to discuss music, share stories about her own career, and listen to Emma's latest songwriting attempts. These conversations became high points in Emma's recovery process, providing motivation during difficult treatment days. "I wrote a song about being brave," Emma told Reba during one of their phone conversations, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "It's called Little Heart, Big Dreams, and it's about not letting scary things stop you from trying." Reba listened attentively as Emma sang a few verses, her feedback both encouraging and constructively specific. "That's beautiful, Emma," Reba said, her genuine emotion evident even through the phone connection. "The way you connect fear and courage in that chorus shows real understanding of what songs can do for people who are struggling. I think you're going to help a lot of other kids with that one." The validation from her idol gave Emma confidence to continue developing her songwriting skills. Dr. Chen's treatments proved more effective than anyone had dared to hope. Emma's energy levels increased dramatically. Her breathing became less labored, and most remarkably, her stamina for singing improved to the point where she could perform entire songs without becoming winded. The transformation was gradual but undeniable, giving Kelly hope for Emma's future that extended far beyond simple survival. 3 months after beginning treatment, Dr. Chen delivered news that exceeded everyone's most optimistic expectations. Emma's response to the treatment has been exceptional, she told Kelly during a private consultation, while Emma napped in the recovery room. Her heart function has improved to levels we typically see only in much milder cases. She's not cured and she'll always need monitoring, but she can live a relatively normal life now. The timing was perfect because Reba's concert was scheduled for the following month. Emma had been practicing daily, working with a vocal coach that Reba had provided to ensure she would be fully prepared for performing in front of thousands of people. The song they had chosen was "Consider Me Gone," the same piece that had provided Emma comfort during her darkest moments and had become symbolic of her journey from illness toward health. Emma's excitement about the upcoming performance was infectious, spreading to everyone involved in her care and recovery. The medical staff at Dr. Chen's facility planned to attend the concert, eager to see their young patient achieve her dreams on such a grand stage. Even Dr. Chen, who maintained professional boundaries with most patients, admitted she had purchased tickets and was looking forward to witnessing Emma's triumph. The night of the concert arrived with Emma more energetic and confident than Kelly had seen her since before the illness began. Backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, surrounded by the history and magic of country music's most sacred venue, Emma seemed transformed from the fragile little girl who had been hospitalized just 6 months earlier. Her new dress, a gift from Reba's stylist, made her look like a young performer rather than a sick child. "Are you nervous?" Reba asked Emma as they prepared for their entrance, adjusting the small microphone that had been specially fitted for Emma's size. "It's okay to be nervous. I still get butterflies before every show, even after all these years." Emma considered the question seriously before answering with characteristic honesty. "I'm excited nervous," Emma replied, "like when you know something wonderful is about to happen, but you also want to do your very best because it matters so much." Reba smiled at the description, recognizing the emotional complexity that made Emma such an compelling performer despite her young age. When they walked onto the stage together, the audience's response was immediate and overwhelming. Word of Emma's story had spread throughout the country music community, and many in the crowd had followed her journey from desperate social media post to this triumphant moment. The standing ovation began before they sang a single note, acknowledging not just Emma's talent, but her courage and determination. Emma's performance of "Consider Me Gone" was flawless, her voice carrying across the historic venue with power and emotion that silenced the large crowd. When she reached the chorus, singing about moving forward despite obstacles, her personal connection to the lyrics was evident to everyone present. This wasn't just a sick child singing her favorite song. This was an artist sharing her truth through music. The duet between Emma and Reba created a magical moment that transcended the typical concert experience. Two voices, separated by decades of age and experience, but united by genuine musical connection, filled the Grand Ole Opry with harmonies that seemed to embody the very essence of country music's storytelling tradition. Emma's clear, pure tone balanced perfectly with Reba's seasoned vocals, creating something neither could have achieved alone. When the song ended, the sustained applause lasted nearly 5 minutes, with the audience on their feet acknowledging not just a performance, but a triumph of human spirit over adversity. Emma stood beside Reba, tears of joy streaming down her face as she experienced the realization of her most impossible dream. Kelly watched from the wings, her own tears reflecting the journey they had traveled from that first desperate social media post to this incredible moment. But Reba had one final surprise prepared. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to the crowd, "Emma has been writing her own songs during her recovery, and she'd like to share one with you tonight." Emma looked surprised, as this hadn't been part of their rehearsals, but Reba's encouraging smile gave her the confidence to step forward. "This song is called Little Heart, Big Dreams," Emma said into her microphone, her voice carrying clearly throughout the venue. "I wrote it for all the kids who are scared but still want to try anyway." The acoustic guitar accompaniment was simple, allowing Emma's voice and words to carry the emotional weight of her original composition. The song was brief but powerful, chronicling a journey from fear to hope through the healing power of dreams and determination. Emma's lyrics were simple enough for a 7-year-old to have written, but profound enough to move an audience of adults to tears. When she finished, the applause was even more enthusiastic than before, recognizing that they had witnessed the debut of a genuinely talented young songwriter. Backstage after the performance, Emma was surrounded by well-wishers, including several country music stars who had attended the concert specifically to see her perform. But the moment that meant the most came when Dr. Chen appeared with a bouquet of flowers and tears in her eyes. "Emma, you've shown everyone tonight that hearts can heal in more ways than one," she said, embracing her young patient with obvious pride. 6 months later, Emma's life had stabilized into a new normal that would have seemed impossible during her darkest moments in the hospital. Her heart condition remained manageable with regular checkups and medication, but she was able to attend school regularly, play with other children, and most importantly, continue developing her musical talents without the constant fear of physical limitations. Reba had become not just an idol, but a genuine mentor and friend, providing guidance as Emma's songwriting abilities continued to flourish. They spoke regularly about music, life, and the responsibilities that came with having a platform to influence others through art. Emma's journal had been filled several times over with original songs, many of which dealt with themes of illness, recovery, and finding strength in unexpected places. The most remarkable transformation, however, was in Kelly herself. The constant stress and financial pressure that had defined her life for years had been replaced by stability and hope for Emma's future. She had returned to working a single nursing job that she loved, able to be present for Emma's childhood in ways that multiple jobs had never allowed. Emma's story had inspired other families dealing with childhood illness, and she had begun corresponding with young fans who found strength in her music and her journey. Her original songs were being shared online, reaching children and families who needed to hear messages of hope and resilience from someone who truly understood their struggles. On the anniversary of Emma's first meeting with Reba, they celebrated with a small party that included Dr. Chen, Trisha Yearwood, and several other friends who had become part of their extended family. Emma performed her latest composition, a song about gratitude that captured everything she had learned about the power of kindness, the importance of not giving up, and the magic that could happen when dreams and determination intersected with human compassion. As Emma sang that evening, surrounded by people who had helped transform her life, Kelly reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a desperate mother's attempt to bring joy to her sick child had evolved into something far more significant, a story of how individual acts of kindness could create ripples of positive change that extended far beyond their original intentions. Emma's voice filled the room with confidence and joy, no longer the fragile whisper of a sick child, but the strong, clear tone of a young artist who had found her purpose through the darkest of circumstances. Her heart, both physically and metaphorically, had indeed grown stronger, proving that sometimes the most impossible dreams were simply waiting for the right moment and the right people to help them come true.